As soon as the Wall Street Journal report came out about stablecoins, the stock for USDC, it went up 25%, and Visa and MasterCard fell about 4 and 5% the same day. What do you think would be the right way for a business to go about selecting the best stablecoin adoption method for them? Does that actually change the entire landscape of how international finances, payments, and economy work? Now, jumping into the next question, I'm assuming that, when you took Soul payments to the common user, like I understand like the major international businesses have a different kind of approach. You can have a different sort of conversation with them. However, when you take it to a common user, like a local mom and pop store, like the small businessman who is, let's say, operating a pizza store or something like that. So what have been the biggest challenge to get them on board, and what kind of user experience you had to develop to make sure that the adoption comes from the retail or the end user as well?
Yes, so that's a good one, because there is a development pretty much in all Latin American countries, which is not so used here. So first of all, the technology we have is bringing us the clients, because Brazil is an emerging market. Many projects want to go over. They look for a licensed fintech provider who can help them. So if you want to sell your products, digital products in the market, you need to find a solution, right? So they rather knock on our doors and say, how can we work together? Why is this? Because there's this particular use case in Brazil. So years ago, I think 2020, the Central Bank of Brazil developed an instant payment technology for the Brazilian users, population, to pay digitally, QR code, fiat-based, and not use Visa or MasterCard. So they kind of pushed out Visa and MasterCard from their country. It's now only this technology Pix. Pix within 5 years has now 150 million users, processing, I think, 700 billion per year. It has 70% of market dominance. So basically, in each and every corner, you only pay with Pix. So stablecoin payments are not individual. Stablecoin payments do not pick up, because this Pix technology is so good, they don't need to replace it. So it's always the cross-border part is the place. So on the one hand, the businesses come to us because they need the technology, they need a regulated partner with all the years of experience we have. But on the other hand, the front end was pretty much a technology from the central bank pushed into the Brazilian market, of which we one of the largest provider of offering this. So it was really the gap of the technology coming plus the problem use case of cross-border payments together solving the issue we see now in emerging markets.
Very, very good insight as well. Unless a business entering, let's say, Brazil, as you mentioned, if they don't have an understanding of how payments work at the absolute ground level, they might actually never be successful. So it's really important to have like the right partner who understands the local market and how the ground level payments work. So that's actually quite advantageous, I would believe, for any business who is looking to enter the Latin American market.
Absolutely correct. So I always say individual payments, not in Europe, not in Brazil. The local technology is good enough, but everywhere where you want to escape inflation, store your value in a different form, send money cross-border for whether be it your family, your relatives, a business, their stablecoin on-chain transactions are the future.
We're going to go ahead and just jump into the next question. Immediately after the Genius Act got passed in the US Senate, I'm sure you must have definitely heard about it. Every second or third day, I come to read something about JP Morgan launching a deposit coin, or Amazon and Walmart jump into the stablecoin game now, Bank of America. So basically, every large institution across the world, financial or business, they're jumping into the stablecoin game. And obviously, they have their advantages and the benefits that they would like to obtain. However, does that actually change the entire landscape of how international finances, payments, and economy work?
I noticed that change as well. Now that the regulation and legal environment is clearer than it was before, also the US is now pro-digital asset and blockchain industry. I think this all gives the certainty to the bigger players to launch an own stablecoin in some shape or form. I think they all have the right to be there, obviously. Everybody tries to get a part of the pie. However, I think ultimately what is important is what is the user base. It is great that Amazon has its own token. Maybe you will only be able to use it inside the ecosystem of Amazon, but it's the same what I see in our daily. The clients nowadays still want USDT on ERC20. There are better blockchains out there, cheaper ones, faster ones. No, Asia wants USDT on Tron, LATAM US want USDT on ERC20, and probably Europe wants to have USDC. Why is this now, you can ask? If you say ERC20 is more expensive, takes longer, I think it comes down to user understanding. People, industry understand now Bitcoin. They kind of trust in it. Okay, good. The next thing they will understand is Ethereum. Okay, good. They understand stablecoin. Makes sense. Now a stablecoin on Ethereum. I understand, right? If you come now with a different chain, USDT on Polygon because it's cheaper, they're like, what is this, right? So it's top down. It starts with Bitcoin, the understanding, and slowly goes on the list down to other Ethereum and such, right? But to answer the question, does it change the payment landscape? I would write it in bold, yes. We see that the payments part of a bank, this industry will fall away. You see Visa, MasterCard, they pretty much non-existent anymore in Brazil. It's just central bank, right? We see that other financial platforms, there's one famous crypto exchange just announced their own payments orchestration platform is Kraken. So this will swift those networks, SEPA or others, ACH, Wire, they will disappear, because it will be just on-chain in the near future. And I think the evolvement of the ecosystem that all the other players now try to have their own stablecoin payment mechanism just supports this trend. And I don't think, or that most of the banks are aware of this, that a substantial part of payments will be executed on-chain in the near future.
And, that is a very good segue into the next question that I have, because as soon as the Wall Street Journal report came out about stablecoins, next day, the stock for USDC, the Circle, which is the parent organization for USDC, it went up 25%, and Visa and MasterCard fell about 4 and 5% the same day. So, the market is also sensing this transformation coming in. There would be like a ticking clock associated with systems like Visa, MasterCard, and even Swift, which does not work on weekends, takes up too much of time, takes too much of transaction and conversion fee, and you might not actually have complete transparency into how your money is being transferred and who actually has control over it at what point of time in the process. So that actually creates a very good launch pad for adoption of stablecoins and the common user who might just have been obsessed with Bitcoin and Ethereum until now to get into the stablecoin game right now. And for businesses as well as for individuals, this might be the moment where they want to do the most of learning and make sure that they take advantage of this trend that is actually moving in really fast. Before, and we've discussed all the good things about stablecoins and how they're going to change the payment game. However, there have been cases in the past, even with Tether, which is, I would say, at the moment, the most profitable organization on the planet when it comes to per employee comparison. They had a case running wherein they were not able to prove the backing of US dollars that is required dollar by dollar. Like if you have $100 million issued in USDT, you were supposed to have $100 million in the bank as well. Now that kind of investigation and guardrails have been laid down in the Genius Act. However, there are some challenges and some things still that people and businesses should be aware of. Just because they see the term stablecoin does not automatically means it is perfect, or they should have confidence in the solution being offered by an unknown company or an unknown issuer or payment solution supplier. What do you think would be the right way for a business to go about selecting the best stablecoin adoption method for them?
My day-to-day, my bread and butter, so to say, is there are, of course, obstacles why not everybody uses it if the benefits are so obvious. I think why is it so complicated? Yeah, otherwise everybody would do it. So I think we run into some obstacles, which makes our business, of course, complicated. I think one big part is regulation, right? So the Genius Act, all this just came out technically, right? And now it came out. There are some rules, but what's the enforcement? There's no experience. There are no predecessor cases. The prosecution exactly. So this is another part of a legal environment, not only having the law written out, also how is it checked, right? If we look into the details, then it becomes more complicated. So hence even those regulation, of course, nobody really knows now or yet how this plays out, I think, is a part. Another topic in regulation we face is, since we don't have coherent and consistent regulation in all the places, is that in certain industries, fintech providers are not allowed to touch crypto because the regulation is not so far yet. So that's a problem. There's a lot of business, but we don't work with unregulated companies, so this is the problem. I think I want to mention two more which popped to my mind. One is, of course, education, because now imagine you have a large commodity trading company based in UAE. They say, let's do stablecoin invoice payments or trading payments. You need to find people who understand this topic, right? Who manage this day by day. It's not anymore, we do some Bitcoin. No, you need to have some sort of product department now. You need a person in finance doing the admin. You need IT, right? How do you store the Bitcoin? How do you manage or stablecoin, right?
I'm saying security, everything, customer service. You have to run it like an entire business. All functions need to be in place, serving the customer base.
Yes, some sort of specialized department, or at least have one person in finance, one person in IT, and then they kind of work together, like, let's say, the crypto payments department, something like Blocker. And then, of course, interoperability, meaning if I send US dollars to your euro account, the bank will notice, they do the FX, and they deposit euros in your account, right? No problem. Now, on chain at the moment, this is not possible. If I send the wrong network, let's say USDT on ERC20 to USDT on TRC20, it will just disappear and vanish in nothing. You need to be very diligent, apply at least a 6-eye check upfront each transaction. Are the details correct? Is it the same network? Because once the transaction is done, it's done and you cannot redeem it. Let's say if you send the wrong amount, but on the correct network, then you can, of course, hope on your client to return the funds and then you settle correctly, right? So there are some options, but interoperability is a risk in our industry because funds are ultimately lost if you send it to the wrong place.
There are a lot of, potential challenges that we might not have been exposed to yet because we are still in budding stages when it comes to adoption. And having an expert opinion like yours gives like a really good segue for anybody who's thinking about, joining the ecosystem or venturing into use of stablecoin for their business or cross-border settlements. This might actually be the right step for them, listening to this podcast and getting all the insights from you. If I was actually, looking to join stablecoin or adopt stablecoin as a cross-border payment solution for myself, for my own business, what would you say should be the, 3 basic check I should do, or what the 3 basic due diligence steps I should be doing before I shake hands with any payment settlement service provider or a stablecoin service provider?
Let's say from a B2B perspective, it is the classic approach. You need some due diligence on your client, corporate registry, not older than 90 days. Check if the license they have, they're mostly publicly somewhere available, to check on the regulator's website. Is this true, right? You can ask the IT company, because most of them are fairly new, on some sort of RFQ, asking questions. How do you do custody? How do you act in a situation where funds get lost or don't arrive? ask those questions. It's nothing bad, right? And now with the regulatory environment, Genial, Mika, or the Swiss system, they're all somehow similar, right? And not very different than traditional financial approach, because the regulator worldwide, the same trend I see. If it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it is a duck, right? You don't, even though it's internet or not, it is still a duck and it's treated like it.
That's like, a very good point that you mentioned. And I'm just going to go ahead and ask you the final question for the day. And it's going to be, a little on the lighter note. What is your wildest prediction? Like, how do you predict the stablecoin market would go? What are the innovations that we are going to see in the market? What will be the impact on a common person's life like me, who's living in, let's say, India or Europe or United States?
I think in this whole trend, I always hope in what I do daily, besides the operational part, is education. Tell our counterparties how it works, with the hope that they understand that this industry grows up. Because without education, if you don't know how things work, you don't know how things work, correct? The first part, we need the traditional players to get hands on how this works, because this will make us a bit easier life. But I think for the whole industry, this makes everything better for each one involved. Now, when we look at the American use case, it is almost sad to see the value of currency depreciating over time without the person who already has not so much lose its value. If we can go in there and help the unbanked, help them to escape this economic threat they're facing in the next years or decades, I think I would love to see this, because this is the real adoption of blockchain. I sometimes think Switzerland was a lab. Here we try regulation, here we try how this could work. Now let's plug this use case somewhere where you really need it, and it is there.
I see a beautiful world out there wherein everybody living in Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia is able to access the banking and finance services that a European or somebody living in Switzerland might be able to experience. And once we achieve that sort of position wherein the unbanked is now banked, we can actually have genuine progress and people coming out of not just poverty, but actually progressing together and building the nations that have been suffering for so long.
But my last tip before we end shortly is there's this book out here, Short the Rip, which I wrote together with Professor Dr. Pornfisut Monkomvanit. Is the president of the Siam Technology College in Bangkok. This explains you how everything works, the wallets, what is important in terms of security, what can we actually tokenize in the real world, and how the concept of money changes our society. You can get your hard copy on Amazon, Short the Rip, get your hands on and get started.
I'll get started on it tomorrow. Today is the final hour of the day of work for me, but I thank you for sharing some amazing insights. You have given us today a very good understanding of the stablecoin concept, the ecosystem, the regulations, and how we can actually imagine a better world with the help of stablecoin and better payment systems across the world. So I thank you, and we would love to actually host you again. And if our audience has more questions, where they can actually follow you and ask those questions.
I'm very present on LinkedIn or on X. Just find me there with my name, Tilma Goes. There are not so many out there. It's a very a good name to be online, because there are not so many of any.
Yeah. All right. I'm sending you. Be sure to, accept my request. And thank you. Thank you very much for your time today. You have a very nice day ahead, Tilma. Take care.